call the East Cocalico Supervisor meeting for October 18th session. Please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please silence your cell phones. Past meeting minutes. Supervisor meeting October 4th. Any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I make a motion that minutes be stand as presented.
I'll second that. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed no. Motion carried. Minutes for the workshop, October 15th. Any additions or corrections to that minutes? Huh?
Yeah, I did correct it on the file, not out here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's still showing
It's
wrong.
still showing on.
Okay. One correction in there, Chairman Mackley noted the proof of publication. It's not meant to be Chairman Fry.
Okay, I'll make a motion as noted that minutes be approved as presented.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed no. Motion carried. Thank you. Department reports, visiting officer had family issues and the police chief at a different meeting. He will be here a little later. Okay, treasurer's report.
Okay. You have a total general fund of $110,784.56. Total state fund of $32,686.98. And a total light fund of $13,182.59. Questions? Hearing none, I make a motion the bills be paid as presented.
I'll second the motion. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed no. Motion carried. Thank you. Line planning.
There, let me just go to that page here. You have before you, the first item is a motion with members first. The motion to set the time extension for offers submitted by the applicant's consultant, dated October 9th, 2018, which will extend the deadline for action on the members first final minor subdivision land development plan until December 21st, 2018. So that's the motion. They are moving along rather nicely at this point. The meeting that they had with Comfort Inn actually resolved the issues between property owner and new property owner that was on the site. And at this point, we're just doing some minor cleanup. So we're about to have a new bank in the township.
Yeah, I don't see anybody here representing that. Okay, I'll make that motion to accept time extension. For a second.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next motion is actually a kind of unusual motion, and we might actually revise our stormwater ordinance when we adopt DEP's model 2022 ordinance that we're going to have to work on next year. But we're actually doing a one-year time extension for UGI stormwater management plan, and permits. So the motion is to authorize and acknowledge a one-year extension of the stormwater management permit issued by the township for the UGI preliminary final land development plan, lot annexation plan, in accordance with section 185.18 of the East Cocalico Township Stormwater Management Ordinance. So it's unusual. Normally for stormwater management plans, they usually get done within a year. Obviously, there's a lot moving with these, with UGI when they got approved, and we're probably going to make, like I said, some changes in the ordinance where we don't have to do these extensions. But this is pretty routine.
Okay. Anybody here representing that? Okay. A motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Any comments or questions?
What's that time extension on that?
1 year. 1 year.
Of what date?
Till goes till then.
December 31st, January 1st?
Just this one.
Yeah, it just says
There's 1 year from when the other was due.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
Just
just,
I don't know
From
what
when
that
the
is.
other was due. Trying to find it.
yeah, the motion is just basically extending it 1 year. I don't know exactly when the date is. So,
We'll get you an answer on that letter.
Okay.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
okay, the next three motions are all the same motion, and then they're for paving extensions. They allow paving beyond October 31st deadline. So the first one's for Walbash Landing, and the motion is authorizing the approval of waiver modification, section 19425K11, East Cocalico Township subdivision land development ordinance to extend the asphalt paving deadline from October 31st, 2018 to November 15th, 2018, conditioned upon the contractor strictly adhering to all applicable weather and temperature restrictions.
Anybody representing that? I'll make that motion.
I'll second same.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, it's the same motion for Heatherwoods Phase 3. The motion is to authorize approval of waiver modification, section 19425K11 of East Cocalico Township subdivision land development ordinance to extend asphalt paving deadline from October 31st, 2018 to November 15th, 2018, conditioned upon the contractor strictly adhering to all applicable weather and temperature restrictions.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
I'll second that one.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
And the third one is for True Denver. The motion is to authorize an approval of waiver modification of section 19425K11 of the East Cocalico Township subdivision land development ordinance to extend asphalt paving deadline from October 31st, 2018 to November 15th, 2018, conditioned upon the contractor strictly adhering to all applicable weather and temperature restrictions.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Go ahead.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. You ready, Chief? Okay, we'll go back to department reports.
Thank you. Apologize for being late. I was just at the National Honor Society induction giving a speech, so. Lots of stuff going on. One thing I wanted to highlight was in the middle or lower part of page 1. We received a $1,500 donation from Dentech. Our contribution to be used as we see fit for equipment or what we need. I'm going to apply those funds along with possibly some others to purchase new stop sticks for the cars. And what that means is it's the things you throw out to try to deflate somebody's tire in pursuit. This will be able to get us 3 additional sets to mount in the back or in the trunk of the patrol cars. So that donation is greatly appreciated by the police department and all the officers. We are in the thick of things meeting with the school and other leaders in reference to the school resource officer. The Cocalico School did receive the grant that they applied for, so we are moving forward in an attempt to get the school resource officer in place after winter break in January. So things are moving in the right direction. And that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief.
Stop sticks were what again?
It's to stop when you're pursuing a car, you throw it out to deflate their tires.
You actually toss it out?
Yeah, they toss it out on the road and the car drives over it. Yeah,
Yeah, the guy down the road.
down the road, throws them out.
Spikes.
Spikes, okay.
Chief, you send him a thank you.
I will.
Thank you.
I just got it
Do you
the
want
other
to
day.
send, do you want one coming from the board also?
Oh, absolutely, that'd be great.
Yeah, good. We'd love to.
Can we do that?
Yes. Yes, we can do that.
You can- And she can make them nice too.
Sure.
Okay, moving on. Ordinance 2018-04.
Yes, Mr. Chair, with some great excitement, I announced that we are about to take our first step into Florida. At this point, township-wide for a commercial and industrial zone. So you have in your file the proof of publication. You have the actual ordinance, which was actually publicly first discussed 2 meetings ago. And then last meeting, we talked about the resolution that adopted the Florida areas. This now completes the process. You also have the advertisement that was placed in Lancaster newspapers. You also have the notice that went to the Lancaster County Law Library too, as part of this. Last meeting, you did adopt Resolution 2018-15, which established the boundaries of the LRTA to encompass the general commercial, planned commercial, light industrial, heavy industrial zoning districts of the township. So right now you have ordinance before you, 2018-04, an ordinance amending the codes of ordinances of the township, East Cocalico Township, Chapter 199, taxation by amending sections 210-43, 210-45, and 210-47, Article 15, Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Act District. So that is the ordinance before you for consideration tonight. Should you adopt the ordinance, then I will notify the school district, and then they will take up action on their end via motion to accept what we are taking or not accept what we are taking at this point to continue the process.
What's the wish of the board?
Make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
I will let the school district know, and I will anticipate this will be on their agenda at the next meeting of the school board.
Okay, ordinance 2018-05, recycling ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we talked about this in a previous meeting. This is an update to the county's new recycling guidelines. What we did with this ordinance to allow it to be easily amended in the future is we actually create appendices that list the items that will still be accepted by the county. At any time, should the county further reduce the number of items that they will accept for recycling, all it is simply an appendice change instead of having to rewrite the ordinance. So you have before you 2018-05, and it's in accordance with right now with what Lexmark will look like.
Okay. I'll make a motion we adopt ordinance 2018-05. Second.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, gated woody waste to prevent illegal dumping proposal.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this has been discussed in multiple meetings. I had given you a proposal in the past meeting, and I'm now asking for action on that proposal. The motion is to authorize the gating of the woody waste area and to approve the proposal from PSX to install a barrier gate with card reader and photo sensors for the woody waste disposal area for a total fee of $7,204. That is the motion. It's going to take about 6 weeks for them to order the material. I would like to do this as an end-of-year 2018 project, have it advertised in our newsletter or in our newsletter, as well as give time for a couple of weeks for residents to get used to seeing the gates up with notices by the gate before we actually activate the gate at the beginning of the new year. Gate cards are roughly $75, basically $3 a card. That is not included in this number. Obviously, we will order cards on demand at this point. There's also going to be some additional cost of moving our camera, our security camera out to the gate location, running electricity out there to support both the camera and the gate, as well as running cable out there for the camera as well as for the gate. That is not included in that number. Also, our public works crew will have to put a concrete pad out there with the gate on top of it. So that's the motion.
Yeah, that should be out on the website.
Website, and I'm gonna, we'll work on getting a nice 2-foot by 3-foot sign explaining that and explaining to the beginning of the year to come to the township to obtain a card. And just for the record, we had talked about the cards being $15 a card.
Is that for the impound lot or after?
That's accurate. It'll be right now where the bollards are, that exact location where we have the wire fence that goes around it. And it could provide an opportunity for us to light them down off yard too, so just to think about that.
Should we,
Very much to see how.
should we have a little flyer out front for when residents stop in, and just take a quick summary of what it is and the fees and
We can do that, we approve this, yes.
What's the wish of the board?
I'll make a motion
I'll second.
that we adopt.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead. I just wondered if the $15 fee is an annual fee or a one-time fee?
Right now, the $15 that Denver charges is annual.
And your total cost was
$7,204 plus the additional
Plus.
cost that we're gonna have to do for this other things.
Plus we're checking.
Right.
Thank you.
Concrete pad in run electrical.
Right, but some work by us, some work by like our electrician.
Yeah. Okay. Whole business.
Mr. Chair, on traffic safety in the intersection of North Muddy Creek, I have been in discussion with two, but I have not released them to do that work, I just have not gotten to it with the budget work we were doing, but I do anticipate having John Schick from, or to start preparing a safety study to turn in and us so that we can try and get that on the tip.
And EMS working group update.
We had the meeting with Wellspan in 2 weeks to see what they're going to be talking to the local EMSs about some sort of regionalization discussion. I will be also having some discussions with our EMS partners going forward with how we're going to be providing EMS in 2019.
Stony Point sidewalk waiver.
I've been sitting on that waiver request. I will pass it on to you at the next meeting.
Okay. Beautification strategy for East Cocalico Township.
I'd like to defer that at this time because that's actually interrelated with some of the things that I had been working through budget related for 2019.
Okay, improved input from businesses and residents.
We have been incorporating some of the input we've received from the businesses. We've had a couple meetings now with a couple of the property owners related to some work that they want to do and just kind of incorporating some of the things that we've heard from that meeting. The one thing I did was I did email the board. We did have Ingram's Powder Coating come in that they want to restart a land development project that they put on hold in 2011. They are coming in because they heard about Laura, so they will be our first loader. So they are taking advantage of that. One of the things we had talked about coming from that business meeting was to have a supervisor assigned as a point of contact. So I emailed you whenever you guys get back to me who the supervisor point of contact will be. We will work on having that supervisor be involved with this as this project. It's a relatively small project. There's only a 5,000 square foot addition on the back of the building. And they're going to clean up the front, to rip up some of the gravel and stuff like that to clean up the appearance of the property.
Also, in terms of input from businesses and residents, one of the things that came up in that focus group, which was a reoccurring theme, was related to stormwater, MS4, and all of that. Okay. One of the things I'd like to propose, and I'd like you to think about, is I think we should ask the business community for volunteers to step up, put together a group to lobby, or a political action type group to go to Harrisburg to discuss the MS4, the implications MS4 has on our business owners here in the community, because we just have no control whatsoever over MS4. The other thing that we have no control over is, as we were discussing with the budget, and we'll see that, is it's becoming one of the key drivers in the budget. So we don't need to make a decision right now. I just want to propose that in terms of thinking that through. Okay? So the general concept and the general idea there is taking the feedback that they had. They've asked they've offered up help. This is one of the key areas where we need to help. And I truly believe, coming directly from the business owners in Harrisburg with their representatives, putting a plan together and telling them just how painful this is, hearing it from them directly is going to be much more beneficial than basically us hearing it from them, because we completely agree with them, but our hands are tied.
And along lines with that, one of the things that came out with this new MS4 permit cycle that we're in is DEP's model 2022 stormwater ordinance that we will need to be working into our ordinances next year and adopting. And of course, whenever DEP imposes a new ordinance, the restrictions don't become more lenient, they become more strict. So that will be occurring next year. Pretty much most of the municipalities will all be adopting an updated stormwater ordinance, and that will be a county-wide thing again, because everybody has to follow what DEP's model ordinances.
And the idea here is really for them then to, my thoughts are, the idea would be for them to then come to us, give us an update as to how, quite frankly, their lobbying is going with MS4. And the business owners can feel free to, they can manage that how they see fit. And they could even get together with other municipalities, because they're suffering the same thing we are with MS4. They can get together with West Cocalico, Adamstown, Ephrata, as many as they want, to really pull together a lobbying organization to express directly to Harrisburg how this is impacting them. Okay? Just
and I don't disagree with you, but it's got to be more than just business owners. I mean, it affects developers more than business owners. It really does.
Right.
And it's a federal thing. It's not I can almost see what's going to happen. They'll go up to Harrisburg and they'll lobby our legislators, and their answer is going to, but this is mandated by the feds, it's not by us, so you need to direct your attention to the feds, not us, because our state guys are only doing what the feds tell them to. It's a step above where we think it should be. So I don't disagree with it. With what you're saying.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Doug, and maybe then, the thought is really just to raise it to another layer of attention, and maybe it'll go higher from there. Yeah, agreed. So, okay?
Improved communications.
In our budget, we are getting quote. We're still. I don't think we got a quote from Cities Plus yet. We're waiting to get a quote from Cities Plus for our website. Facebook, we will be looking at that with Nancy Hess's proposal on policies, because that's a loaded gun, setting up a Facebook page, as Chief knows, with the police Facebook page, and how you manage it and control what gets used on it, and make sure it doesn't get abused in ways that it's not intended. So we're going to be incorporating that with her policy, and the township may or may not do a Facebook page based off of that, based off what we hear from that and what we have for staffing. We're obviously doing video meetings at this point, but I think we will be in a pretty good shape in the first quarter of next year to have a new website at this point.
Yeah, I think that
Or a rather academical number.
that'll be critical.
Okay, authority rental agreement for 2019.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I has a typo saying ordinance that this is the rental agreement. That's just the get on everybody's radar screen that will be for action in a November meeting. Basically, the rental fee that the authority is presenting to us is very fair at this point, and more than covers the cost of having them utilize the space in this township building.
I can see it listed here.
Oh, it's coming, it's under, it'll be a new business. Yeah.
Is it?
I'll,
He's under here, he doesn't have it.
Okay.
with that just coming in, I figured new business for that.
Okay. Tax collector update.
We have, it was advertised and that for review the other week. We have until the 24th to collect resumes. One resume verbally, I was told, will be coming in next day or so. I was told there might be a second candidate that might be interested, so we might have up to 2 qualified candidates at this point. After the 24th, we'll see who submitted resumes and we'll set interviews at that point with whomever responded at that point, so.
Okay, good. Budget workshop meeting update.
Mr. Chair, at the request of what came out of our meeting on Monday, I will open up this video presentation and we'll turn it over to you guys.
We had the budget workshop meeting. This was a presentation that was presented during that meeting. As we move forward, I think there's two quotes from Winston Churchill that are very poignant at this point in time for us. Let our advanced worrying become advanced thinking and planning. A pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. And that is basically the premise of how we're trying to address where we are right now. Next slide. We need to take a look at historically where East Cocalico has been relative to where the U.S. inflation rate has been year over year in terms of our taxes. The orange in the background represents where the U.S. inflation rate has been annually, year over year, from 2000, the scale there is 2000 to 2018, and on the left side the scale goes from 0 to, I believe there was, I have the chart here, there was a point where it was about 5.4, 5.6% on the inflation rate. The average is actually running just over 2%. And it's already been forecasted for 2019 and 2020 as the U.S. inflation rate is going to be right around 2% is what they're doing their modeling at. Okay? When we look at that and we compare it to where East Cocalico's tax rate has been year over year, there have only been 7 times that the tax rate has actually increased in East Cocalico since 2000. There was an increase in 2001, 2004, 6, 7, 12, and 13. The point of this graph is it gives you a perspective in terms of, in the past, they've done a really good job of holding the tax rate fairly stable, but we haven't even come close to keeping up with the rate of inflation for the U.S. in general, and then we have the compounded issue of that inflation rate being compounded annually. Next slide. This gives you a little bit different picture. It's the same exact data, just it's probably a little bit easier to read in this perspective. The blue line is East Cocalico tax rate year over year, and realistically it's been flat, which was a good thing in the past. The problem that we're facing right now is the compounded annual tax rate, the compounded annual rate of inflation has far outpaced where our taxes have been. Next slide. There's 5 key contributing factors, in my opinion, as to where East Cocalico is and where we're currently sitting. One of those, number one, is the costs and expenses of doing business have steadily increased. As I mentioned earlier, I'll repeat it because it's worth repeating. The U.S. rate of inflation from 2000 to 2018 averaged 2.14% versus East Cocalico increases from 2000 to 2018 have only averaged 1.69%, 7 and 18 years. And remember, then we have the annual compounding issues, which further put us behind. That's one item. The second contributing factor is when tax increases were needed in the past, they were not implemented. Third item, we've had extremely limited growth during this time period for various reasons, many, many reasons. And no advantage was really taken during prior expansion, during prior increases in the economy, okay? For, again, various reasons. The fourth item, we lost our neighboring police departments. We have to take a look at where we are realistically. The loss of our neighboring police departments compounded the issue. Now comes the item which is starting to really dominate our discussions in budget and dominate our analysis. MS4 stormwater. In 2019 to 2023, increase in EPA and DEP stormwater compliance costs. We have no control whatsoever over what's going to occur with EPA and MS4 and DEP. We have no way of controlling that at all. Okay? So that is now, the 4 items as of this year quickly turned into 5, and that 5th item is really starting to accelerate. Next slide, please. Next steps. We have some tough decisions to make. We have some very, very tough decisions to make. And good leadership involves understanding where we are and understanding that we have to make some tough decisions. Next slide. Alan Audrey said it best the way I look at it. Quote, leadership demands that we make tough choices, period. We can reestablish the footing for the future in East Cocalico. We can take advantage of it right now, and we can reestablish where we're going if we do 4 things. We have to have cost containment. We have to right-size our organizations and our operations. We have to look at taxes, tax increases, and we have to look at growth. Because all of these factors are going to contribute to helping East Cocalico end up in a very positive position in the years to come. So this was the basis of how we started our budget discussions.
So, Mr. Chair, in that meeting, I did get some guidance from you on both the cost containment side, but making some permanent cost cuts, as well as tax increases and fee increases. I will be working on taking that information over the next week and a half to prepare a final draft budget for our November 1st meeting. I will be requesting again individual meetings with each one of you to take the guidance I was given and to get your additional input. The goal will then be to roll out the formal budget November 1st. Again, we are ahead of where we were last year, because last year we didn't even have the workshop done at this point by November 1st, and you're already going to have the initial budget out at that time. So that really is about as much as I can talk on my end about the budget.
And the one thing I'd like to say too, is I'll add to Scott's comments, is the input we've given individually. I mean, you and I talked about this privately, is now that input, we have the ability now, we're in an excellent spot. We have the ability now that as we're looking at making these changes in 2019, we're modeling it out through 2021. So it's not just the impacts for 2019, it's the impacts for 2020, 2021. Okay?
Mr. Russell, if I may, on that line, being I was here at the budget workshop meeting on Monday, there was a new tax proposed by the board and agreed upon by the board. When can we hear some of the details of that?
That's realistically, I got to run the numbers, and that's what November 1st represents. So then now I got to go back to the tax collector, actually confirm information. The other thing was a stormwater fee. I need to go back and confirm that too. And we've already reached out to the county to figure out how we implement that. I also had some cost containment that I need to work on at this point. So all 3 of those get rolled out in November 1st budget.
Well, that would just pertain to the numbers involved. The general framework of it is more what I was looking for. Is this a broad-based tax on the whole community, or what are the details of that?
At this point, really, I'm not at liberty to talk. It was what was talked about in the workshop. I have things to figure out now that they gave me their marching guidance. And then I gotta go back and forth with them a little bit, with what I heard, and then run numbers and see what it comes out at. I mean, well, to be honest with you, it was a 7.5% is what was being looked at, but that doesn't mean that's ultimately what it's gonna be. They gave me a number that I need to work for, and I need to see what that really turns into as a tax collector.
Well, would that be the tax on the existing property tax that's out there? Or are you referring to the new one that was proposed?
I don't know what you're asking there, to be honest with you.
Well, there was two different taxes talked about, a 7.5% increase on the existing property tax, but then there was a separate tax talked about for the MS4 costs.
No, stormwater fee, yes.
I think that the term was tax and it was probably inappropriately used. It should have been a fee.
Yeah, it was, it's a fee.
It's a
Well,
fee.
and, you know, there was no details about the framework.
We're still working on it.
That's what I'm saying, I'm working with the
I don't know what you're
county.
not understanding.
I-
I've already said it three
We're
times.
we're still working on those details.
Okay.
And the other, quite frankly, the other challenge we're having right now is there's been some information out in the community which has caused me to readjust numbers in my confidence level in certain things in our plans, to the tune that it may have cost us an extra $112,000 because of discussions that were being held outside, not giving us the ability to act on what we're needing to act on, and they've jeopardized, quite frankly, 6 months' worth of work. So Scott has to rerun those numbers because my confidence in a couple of those items has gone to 0. So there's another $112,000 back into that budget plan. So to answer your question, Jeff, there's a tremendous amount of moving parts right now. And I'll be very frank with you. I think the public needs to hear this. This is not easy for me. I have lost a lot of sleep the last 3 to 4 weeks. There is a tremendous amount of work going on behind the scenes right now. Because this is not easy, but this is what we've been dealt with. This is the hand we've been given, and this is where we need to step up as leaders. And I have the confidence in the people sitting up here that we can get through this. But we have to deal with it.
So I would like to interpret and feedback to you what I think I heard you say. That in your budget meeting, based on all of the background you've given me, it appears there's going to be some kind of property tax increase and possibly a stormwater management fee. I do know other municipalities have just simply called it MS4 tax, and if they've done it, some of them, their township has done it by a number of feet in front of your property, but then they're all residential, they can do that. That would be very difficult when you have a mixture of rural, agricultural, residential, etc. So more than likely, I assume it would be based somehow on value of property. But am I correct, because I think I remember reading in the Hummelstown Sun, a stormwater management fee is imposed on everyone, including nonprofits.
Yes.
That's what we're looking at, that's
Okay.
correct.
I mean, that's just
Those
the
are
way
all,
the law
those
is
are
written.
some of the moving parts that
Yes.
Romeo discussed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
And to be quite blunt, given the discuss that we have with what's been going on with MS4, it is actually going to be on the bill to every resident. It is going to be an MS4 EPA and Department of Environmental Protection stormwater fee.
Okay.
Putting it right where the fee is coming from. They're mandating that we got to do these projects. There's no funding to come along with them. We're going to be spending well over $500,000 over the next 5 years, well over, more like $750,000, $800,000. And if we don't get the grants that we talked about a couple weeks ago, the price is over $1 million for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
no funding goes along with that unless we do get the grants. I don't want to say no funding at all. But for the most part, it's completely underfunded or unfunded depending on.
Yeah, it's a mandate that doesn't have any funding.
Right,
Yeah.
unfunded mandate.
Mandates, right.
And that's one of those difficult things we're trying to balance in terms of, it's so difficult because my personal opinion and my confidence with DEP is zero. So, you know, Scott, we're putting a plan together in terms of what are the chances we're gonna get those grants. And I have to be frank, my personal opinion is I want to plan for we don't get those grants.
Right.
We don't
Scott has
for the
confidence we
worst,
might
and
get.
that
Plan for the
is better
worst, and if
fine.
we get them, you can change
Right.
it. Yeah.
And as we talked about, like between now and November's meeting, by next week, we should find out whether we got the grant or not. And that will have a big difference in what gets presented in the budget.
And to further answer your question, Alex, this ties into the MS4 item that I mentioned earlier related to a lobbying organization or political action committee. This goes back to what are some of the details we're working on. I think we're working on a level of detail that I think you'll be very happy to see and very impressed with. And one of those items, quite frankly, comes from the budget discussions about rolling in all the information we've received, including the business focus group information. The business focus group information talked about MS4. They talked about that. MS4 happens to be one of the key pillars here of the 5 pillars that we're struggling with. So everyone's going to be involved in helping us fix this. And we're going to need the business community, and like Doug said, rightly so, he's correct. The developers, we need them to step up. We need their help in going to Harrisburg, reporting to us, going to Harrisburg, and expressing the amount of pain this is causing them. Because we need that help. So that's part of it.
Yeah, and I just really wanted to clarify that there are no public numbers put out till after the first draft, November 1st. Or
That's
whatever.
right.
Yeah, correct.
But based on all the facts, that certainly fiduciary-wise, good planning would say anticipate a property tax increase and some kind of fee for stormwater.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And I would add to that in terms of emphasizing the good planning here is we're looking at what are going to be the subsequent impacts 3 and 4 years down the road.
Yeah, that's it, you've got some longer term thing.
Exactly.
Yes, Ken.
Were you planning on doing the stormwater tax based on frontage or?
We don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
We don't know.
Because I just want to say, doing it on frontage is quite unfair. People who live on a corner get taxed twice. On the same size property, that's not very fair.
We're aware of all that.
If
Well, you're okay, you're not in the corner.
I know, I'm not on the corner, but I know people that are. And the other thing is, if you're gonna do it as a stormwater tax, maybe it really should be done based on the number of square feet of impervious surface, because that's what contributes to stormwater. If it's a stormwater tax, it should be based on the amount of stormwater that property is producing in terms of runoff, which is where we
That just will be a nightmare trying to figure that one out.
If we were to do that, that would be a $200,000 study in all fairness. Another thing I will disagree with you on is some of our worst stormwater, and I don't want to bust on the farming community, but some of our worst stormwater offenders will also not show up with much impervious
Right.
because they're accurate.
Correct.
And so we're going to be looking at something that's going to be fair to all parties.
And everybody has a different interpretation of what impervious surface is.
Because what has happened for those that are in communities that still have a heavy ag presence, when you put it purely on impervious, it falls on your industrial and your commercial zone extremely heavy at that point. And those studies, like I said, I've seen a couple early studies in earlier years, and those, anytime a municipality teaches that, they're going to drop a couple $100,000 just to calculate the impervious and come up with a plan. What the going thing has been ever since the state the other year allowed second-class townships to impose fees and not form a stormwater authority is they can do a property assessment, which has usually a direct correlation to the amount of stuff on. Obviously, an industrial use will have a lot higher assessed property value than a residential use.
Thank you. Move to new business?
Mr. Chair, as you're aware, this is a last minute ad, this came in about 5 o'clock tonight. You have in your packet the East Cocalico Lions Club. I do have a motion I'll read out to you, which kind of explains the request. The motion is to authorize East Cocalico Lions Club to conduct a toll road fundraiser on Friday, November 4th, 2018, from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the intersection of Church Street and Greenstown Road. So that was the request that we got in the 5 o'clock. Given it was a rather routine request and it is kind of timely that they need to get approval, they can do their planning. I'm asking you to take into consideration that action on that tonight.
I make a motion, we allow that to happen.
I'll second the motion. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Manager's report.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the first item I want to talk about is something that I would like the board to take action on at the next meeting. So I want to introduce this as the manager's report just because of how short notice it is. But we had a pension working group meeting today, and it was a very long meeting. Every time we're meeting with Uninvest right now, the meetings are in the hours. So it was a couple-hour-long meeting. In my report, I'll read our pension working group met today with Uninvest for a 2-hour working session, reviewing our current agreement with principal, current MMO calculations, MMO strategy going forward, current investment allocation with principal, went over next steps, and went over the development of an investment policy statement, which we're going to review in a minute. On the contract side, does appear to be some discrepancies with what principal did related to the defined benefit program. So with the defined benefit program, there is a direct pay option, which would have kept retirees out of the defined benefit program. That was written into our contract. So every time a person retired, we should have been given the option to either do direct pay or put them into the defined benefit program. We were not given that option, so we were going to inquire back to principal why we were not given that option. We will more than likely be able to renegotiate some of our terms from the defined benefit program and maybe pull some of our more recent retirees out of it. So it was a big deal that Uninvest caught that, pointed out where it was going on, and flagged it for us, and we looked some of the fine print in that agreement. What makes their agreement also confusing, and why that one kind of was hidden in, is they had a lot of language in there that is not applicable to Act 600. It was a boilerplate agreement, and so basically half of that agreement doesn't even apply to the way we do business. So there's all these little things that were slipped in, and that was one that was, you read it, you wouldn't even understand what you're reading. So by having Uninvest, who's very experienced at that, pointing it out, we're going to have the potential to challenge the defined benefit and renegotiate some terms. That was the good news that came out of that part. They ran the current MMO calculations, gave a real good explanation of why our MMO was so high for the last 2 years. Not all of it was due to market performance. So they made some recommendations that we will be incorporating that's actually in this investment policy statement that we're going to talk about in a moment. So that would be our MMO strategy going forward. Based off, depending on 2018 ends with a good year, we will have a good MMO coming up next, with both what's going to be done with this policy statement and with basically the rate of return that we've got. The third thing they went over was our current investment allocations with principal, and some of the things that they raised and talked about. One of the things that was, just taking a step back on our MMO calculations, principal the other year arbitrarily reduced our investment rate of return goal from 6.75% annually to 6%. That represented a couple $100,000 increase in the MMO by doing that one step. So we'll be talking about that in the investment strategy in a minute. But they did, when we went over their numbers, I mean, I guess to their credit, they set the bar really low, and then they exceeded it with last year's 2017 return. So they made up well above the 12% that they need to make up over a 2-year period of time for the MMO. So that in itself will create an MMO decrease with our 2019 calculations, assuming we don't have a market crash between now and December 31st. So they went over some next steps, and then they talked about this investment policy. So I apologize because people have to turn and kind of screen, and you got it in front of you. If you want to look or if you want to read off of your paper. But I would ask that you review this. Some of this is just kind of boilerplate, talks about East Cocalico Township, talks about the pension working group. It says pension board right now, they will correct that and call it a working group. Goes over some of the information, basically defines who our actuarial is, which is Buyer Barber, who's independent of Univest. Talks about Univest, talks about TD Ameritrade as a plan custodian that Univest uses. Goes over investment objectives and basically sets policy for how the pension working group will monitor things and what the fiduciary responsibilities of the township is. And what basically their responsibilities are. Talks about planning on a 10-year investment horizon and what desired outcomes are going to be. Sets a 6.5% investment goal instead of annual investment goal instead of 6% that's currently set with Univest. That will improve our MMO. Most plans right now still have a 7% goal or higher, so that really was an artificially low goal that was set by principal, which did impact our MMO calculations. We would get, if we up this according to Univest, if we went back up to 7% or something like that, we would probably be flagged for an audit. It's too sudden an increase at this point. So they recommend a basis point increase at this point, taking up to 6.5%. And obviously we can reevaluate the investment, especially after a market correction occurs. But this takes into account a market correction. Even with a market correction over a 10-year period of time, a 6.5% is a very conservative investment goal right now. And like I say, it's an improvement over what principal was using for their calculations. So that's in there. Obviously, that's part of what gets adopted with this plan. Goes over selection of investments, how the money managers work with that. So that's something for you to read. This is the most important thing in the whole plan. This is what I talked about in the past, what I'm accustomed to seeing when I work with my pension provider in East Hemphill Township. This is your asset class and your asset weighting. It gives you your range and your target for different types of investment classes. So you got your U.S. stock market, which is your domestic equity. You got international stock, which is your international equity. You got fixed income, which is bonds. We got what's going to be other investments, ultimate investment, I think is the term they use. It is primarily real estate. And then you're going to have cash. They give a range. They work within this range. This is what our typical target would be, but that doesn't, we're not going to limit them to that target. They will work with this range, especially as the market gets back up to the crest. They might decide the volatility, they want to increase the cash up to 10%. Or they might want to hold our annual contribution that we get from the state aid or some of the employee contributions and put that all as a cash in anticipation of a market adjustment. But this would be a 10-year plan. So this once again takes into account a market adjustment that will occur maybe in 2020 and in 2019, maybe all the way not to 2021. But there will be some sort of market correction above 10% within the next year and a half, 2 years. Right now, the bond market, due to rising interest rates, is actually running in the negatives. You think as we're coming to the end of a market cycle that you need to put all your money into bonds, but if we were doing that right now, we'd be showing negative returns. And that's why they say you need to invest with a long-term look, not looking at what's in front of you, but looking at what's going to be in front of you for the next 10 years. So this is what you will be adopting by resolution at our next meeting. This is what the pension working group agreed with Univest, that this should be the ranges and targets. It does differ from what principal has. Principal has what's called 60-40 split, 60% equity, 40% fixed income in cash. Principal has the real estate at 12% right now, which is ridiculously high. Real estate and alternate investments. And 8% of that is real estate, but 12% of it is what they would all call alternate investments.
So that was the mix we had talked about today. With some of Univest's guidance, that's the mix that we agreed to.
So this mix is a 65-30 mix right now. So if you look here, 32% fixed income, 3% cash. That's your bonds and money market right now. And then it's 65% stock, international, and what they're calling alternate basically real estate. Is what that would be. A little bit more aggressive than what Principal has. Learning a little bit more about how bonds are reacting. It doesn't really make sense to put stuff in the bonds if it's going to be negative at this point. Might as well squeak out what we can until there's a market correction at this point. 6.5% over a 10-year period of time is not an unrealistic goal for your investments for this split. In fact, it'll probably be more in the range of 7%. Long term, I personally seen on the investment markets, they say after the correction, we're going to look at typically 8% growth, and that in basically domestic equities on the conservative side. So we're well within that range right now. So what this would happen is they go over a little bit more about how they're going to grade themselves using some of the different grading schemes, which I showed you when we were going through the proposal process. And they basically break it out for each of the different types of funds and how they handle that. And then they go over diversification. Of course, they have their little thing that you can't control how the market reacts at any given time. Controls, roles of the money manager. Like I said, review of the different funds and what the different standards are going to be. So the different indices and such that will grade how our investments are working at this point. And at the end, this will change too, but the entire pension working group will each sign it. So we will sign this document, and then you as a board will actually adopt a resolution accepting this document. So there's ownership of the entire pension working group that we've reviewed it, and that we agree fully with everything that's in this document, and then the board takes action by resolution by making the document official. So that is what you're going to be looking at for your investment policy. That will be the first ever that Cocalico has had.
And this is only the beginning of a lot of the work, because we agreed today also, Jill, correct me, it was quarterly, right?
Yeah, it would be quarterly, expected at the beginning with all the work that needs to be done.
Right. So we'll be meeting quarterly with Univest to review all this and review the asset classes in the first year.
I think the pension working group was, it was the first time they all met Ron Bittner and saw him working, not marketing like he's been doing, but actually working. I won't speak for the whole group, but I think they were all rather impressed. So I'm looking at Jill too, she sat in with Ron, he knows his stuff. And we have a very fiduciary-based pension manager that is going to be looking out for the best interest of the township. It has no financial gain in any of the investments that we recommend. And the fact that he's given us a way to negotiate with Principal to renegotiate the terms of our defined benefit is huge potential. Yeah, it's a huge thing. I'm confident that we're going to get some terms renegotiated. But the neat thing is with them also being the manager now within Principal itself too. They can do our investment mix in the defined benefit part, not just in the TD Ameritrade, but also in the Principal part. They can start draining down the real estate investments to a more reasonable number, increasing the equity to a more reasonable number, reducing the cash basis that we have in the defined benefit program into a more reasonable number. So I was pretty excited with today's meeting. I thought today's meeting is another positive step in the right direction. And in the long term, it's going to help with our own costs.
Yeah, one of the things that, I was at the working group, one of the things I was impressed with Univest was on how he explained the different components within the MMO and the impact that it would have. I thought that was, because a lot of times people that are working on the municipalities, they don't have that type of knowledge. And to understand all the moving components, I think is paramount to